Well, I was just going to say big thank you to everyone that worked on the Shepherd Centre team. Can you guys just stand up, because we have a lot of staff from the Shepherd Centre here, and I just want them to be able to see, everyone that worked in our team. They worked really hard, and everyone was really committed. So thank you guys. Especially Chris, he's worked extremely hard. So I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Chika. Right, so what we've built is a sort of a strategic roadmap for clinical data and insights. It was a huge problem, both in terms of data, methods, and outcomes. I've tried to tackle that this weekend. So, we saw a highly endearing video in the introduction yesterday about a boy who entered school and he was able to engage with the hearing world. So, what this is about is empowering the clinicians and the parents to help deaf children be what they want to be through data and insight. Okay, so the formatting isn't working after transferring to the Mac. However, in a nutshell, babies enter this program with a hearing impairment and they come out the other end as 4, 5, 6-year-old children, ready for school, ready to engage in the hearing world. And while they're in there, there's, I guess, 2 domains. One is clinical interventions. So these are clinical appointments, things they go to regularly, and then optional group activities. And then running parallel to that, clinical measurement. So there's standard language, vocabulary and speech assessments, as well as a sort of a bespoke solution they built, which is called the Functional Listening Index. Now, our challenge is to understand the relationship between these clinical interventions and the clinical outcomes. Again, formatting, apologies here. Okie dokie, so there's sort of 4 domains in this strategic roadmap. So the first domain is understanding the impact of the clinical interventions. So for example, does increase the number of appointments change their outcome? Is parental group participation another factor that leads to better success? The second domain, I'm not sure if I'm using this word correctly, but it's understanding the specific features of the child and how they relate to outcomes. So is it a unilateral or bilateral issue with their hearing? At what age were they administered, and all those kind of things like that. The third domain is all about building tools and analytics that empowers the clinicians and the parents. So just an example would be, if I was there with my kid and I wanted to understand how well they're doing, I need to benchmark them against their cohort and account for the specific attributes of that particular kid. And then the last domain is all about understanding the functional listening index. So can we predict it from other measures? What impact do the appointments have on its performance? And how relevant is each question that lies underneath the functional listening index? Now, there's a lot in there. What do we actually do in these 2 days? So we pulled out some key insights and we've mapped them into a few domains. So things that are descriptive. So these are the simpler things, just pulling up, how many kids have certain reasons for hearing loss, how many have certain devices fitted, and what's their age of diagnosis. We have more interesting things like behaviors and trends. How does a child progress through different levels of performance on the assessments? How do they engage with the Shepherd Centre? How many activities do they attend? Things that are predictive, which is where it gets really exciting. So if we do this, then how does that impact their outcomes? So we've looked at the relationship between the language, vocab and speech measurements and the functional listening index, the impact of appointments and initial diagnosis and initial age of administration on the functional listening index. And things that are prescriptive. So when you combine understanding the typical behaviours, you've let a look at prediction, then you can start making recommendations. Operationally, how would you change? What data would you collect? How would you present it and expose it to the clinicians and the parents? Okie dokie, so just an example saying it's descriptive. Well, right now they have about 450 clients that they're looking after, predominantly children 5 and under, with a variety of causes for hearing loss, and a fairly large percentage of them that had implants fitted. Now, so this is just a simple graph, and what it shows you is where their performance from the functional listening index is in different age groups. So I think a simple way to find this useful is to say, if I have a kid and he's, let's say he's in his 40th month and his score is beneath 40, then maybe I should be concerned because that's outside of his typical range. To take this a step further, which is where we're going, is to say, well, but this is the age that he was onboarded. This is his specific issue. Maybe that's actually not underperforming. Right. So again, a little bit more of the same. This is just showing you how many assessments these children are receiving for various skills: so auditory, total language, receptive vocabulary. The ones and the zeros are mostly children who just started. Predictive. So right. Okay. So answering the impacts. Well, what impact does appointment participation have on your clinical outcome? It's difficult. There are so many compounding factors. But just to start simply, total appointments coming this way, and appointments per week going up that way. The more dark green that dot is, the better their functional listening index is on their final take of the assessment. And the message here is that consistent appointment attendance for an extended duration has an impact on your performance. That's good to know. All right, again, prediction. So what we have here, so keep in mind that the language, vocabulary, and speech assessments, they're a little bit more standard and regular. The functional listening index is the bit that's unique to the Shepherd Centre. And what we want to understand is the relationship between that index and the standard assessments. And what this shows is that both the language assessment and the vocabulary assessment correlate with the functional listening index. That's exciting. To take that one step further, we want to see how it correlates with each individual item that's underneath it. Okay. Well, that didn't come out right at all, but so the team fit a model. They tried to predict the functional listening index, and just to give you an idea of some factors, so the age of entry had an impact on the index. The earlier you're administered, the better your outcome. If you come in later, the worse your outcome. And obviously the age you are at the time of your latest, where you are now has an impact. We've taken out that effect so that we can get a clean estimate for the relationship between the vocabulary assessment and the language assessment on the functional listening index, and they are both positively correlated and extremely statistically significant. So again, more insights to validate the index. Alrighty, so to come back to the example of tools you can have at the front end. So this shows you the kids' increase in their index over time. So there's a cohort there of about 50 kids. And imagine just going to click on one kid's line and it just sort of comes up and fades, everybody else is out there. And the kind of insight you can get from that, I mean, if you showed this to a mother, so I said, Timmy's mother was relieved to see her child has closed the gap. So this guy's sort of the lower end of the spectrum earlier on, but he comes up right in the median point towards the end of his tenure with the Shepherd Centre. So that's a good finding. So on the prescriptive side, so this is about validating the way the index is constructed, and I'll just take a step back here. So the language, vocabulary, and speech scores, they're standardized assessments. They're not specifically geared to the particular challenges facing hearing impaired children. So the index has two things. One, it does focus on those particular challenges, and second, it works as a diagnostic tool. But you try and check an item, they can't do this, and that's then a prompt for a responsive action. Okay, so there's quite a bit that goes into trying to. So we try to tackle looking at the effect of the individual items to previous scores, but it was a huge challenge just because of the way the data was structured. But good news is that it's not a massive change to sort of re-pivot that to allow for the analysis. All right, so four areas of recommendations. So one is formalize the collection policy. So that's when so as much as possible, you want to keep consistency between when the first assessment is taken for each child. You want to ally the practices of every clinician, and you want to formalize a method to take note of whether a kid has had an item assessed but they haven't passed, or whether the item hasn't been assessed at all. there's a huge difference there, and statistically that it's important to help validate the index. Part 2 is formalize progress benchmarking. So if somebody's trending, if they've gone up 20 points this year, is that better or worse than average? And there's a message there to communicate with the family. 3 is aligning the data structures. That's to the point in the first one. So if you've got a method for recording whether or not something's been taken, then it needs to be reflected in the database, queried efficiently, and then can be exposed back to the business with no hassle. And then, there's an underlying goal here. So, I mean, the Shepherd Centre is already one of the leading providers of these services, but it also can be a powerhouse in research. And a big part of that is statistically validating the index and then getting that publication out there in the research community. So, so we could look at validating each FLI item against the individual scores and their conditions. And another option would be, well, how, if we're trying to answer how valid the index is, one thing we've got to look at is, well, how do they perform after they leave the centre? How do they perform 2 years later? So maybe there's some room there for a sort of a post-early intervention program survey. Just get an idea of how they're tracking, and then sort of re-benchmark that against the latest assessment they had with the Shepherd Centre. And so that was what we tackled, and we've recorded, we've kept a copy of all the manipulation of data that we've done. We've got a copy of all the modelling processes that have been run. So this is something that we can operationalise within your systems as well.
Hello, I'm the last one. So given that Chris did a great presentation, everything they want to do needs money. So that's why I'm here. So my team focus point is help Shepherd Centre to generate the dollar sign. And that's what we are trying to do. A lot of tasks that we think about that we can deliver to Shepherd Centre, but we want to give you some quick win. So give some insight to Joanne about your next campaign, give some census data to Yika for the next campaign as well. So first, we start with the internal data from Shepherd Centre. We find out some interesting factors or information that we can drill further. For example, 61% of the contact are contactable. On the flip side is 39% that you can't touch, which is a huge number in your 70K donors. So you want to find out the reason behind why they're being opt-out so frequently. And also, 70% of the donor will donate you within 3 months. So we put that in the color in green and also orange. So on the other words, is there any way we can think about to swap the red into green and red into orange and orange into green? So on the other word, what does that mean to you, right? So did you fully engage with your customer, your donor? So is there anyone used to being green or orange swapped to red? Did you send out some mail pieces too frequently to some donor and then drive them to opt out? How to reduce the orange and red? Okay. It's funny, there is a header missing in here, but the header is appearing here. I don't know why. Apple. So, sorry, I'm a Samsung fan. So, very biased. 70% of the donor come from female, which is not surprised by your team. 65% are married. May not be surprised, but the population rate are really low. So the takeaway from us is, here is like alarm for us to think about, is there any other data we can bring to you for you to have a more like a complete view for what your donor is. So if you just say 65% of your donor is married and then you only focus on people who get married, may not be the complete picture. And you can see based on a high level count for the donation, 90% of your money actually come from 4% of your donor. So which means, how about you provide some personal service in terms of charity thing to the donor who can donate you more. So don't do direct marketing, telemarketing, maybe a one-to-one connection with like an account manager, which may get more value out of your donor. Oh, now the header comes up. Oh, okay, so you need to double press. Okay, so we're trying to analyze Shepherd Center start with your internal data. So we try to provide some insight by analyzing those people who make the first donation, how will they make the second donation. The interesting find out from Megan is, if they donate you for, let's say, around $100 for the first time, the next donation will be roughly about the same number, and so on. So the key takeaway from here is, if they first come to you and you find out the dollar sign is big enough, then maybe you need to keep an eye on those first newcomer and then try to engage them in a better shape. Because the value, if they come with $50, they not highly, they will go up to 100. But if they start with 100, then you want to keep them in 100 instead of dropping to 50. And the reason for opt-out are quite 65% are come from unsubscribed, so they are really intent to not to respond to any mail pieces. So the frequency for hitting your donor is a really like a big issue for you. Okay, so now we try to apply some more like an interesting angle to analyze your data by using RFM. So based on your donor history, we find out those donors who make a donation within 3 years period. And within that batch, the pool, we find out the donation for them to make the last donation and the previous one. So for example, if I make a donation in December and I make a donation previously in October, then the period will be 2 months. What we are trying to get out from that is, we want to find out, for example, if you normally donate within 6 months, have you donated after 6 months? So this graph is capturing all the people who make a donation within 36 months. The height of the bar the height of the bar is telling you the number of donors. The green in here is telling you those people who make a donation within the 36 months, and the gap for them to make another donation will be around 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months. The green one is they already make a donation within past 6 months. So on the other way is, if I have the full bar and then I reduce the blue one, we only focus on the green one. Are those people, they make a donation with you in the past 36 months, but they didn't donate to you within 6 months. For those people within that range, so they normally donate within around 6 month windows, those are the people in green you should target to them again. Because on average, they like to donate per 6 months, but within the past 6 months, they didn't donate anything to you. So that's what the people that you can target to. And by calculating the average value, 240K. Imagine 10%, 24K, easy money. Sorry. Okay, so we find out there are some gap between your data and the attributes that you have. We try to supplement your data, enrich your data by bringing census data. So thanks for Jay, Megan, and also Chris. We spend a night for dealing with this kind of things, and then eventually we get some key attributes to bring into Shepherd Center to give out some information in here. So we try to find out the top 5 postcodes with the highest total number, excluding those outliers. So those are the 5 postcodes you get the most money from. Within that 5 postcode, we try to supplement the information with the census data. So start from there, the weekly income is way more than the average. So for example, for those people who live in this postcode, they will have a weekly income 1,500 to Do you want to buy a Samsung notebook? I don't know, it works. You get 1K, it doesn't work, I don't know what it is. So within those bands, those are the people overrepresented. So to put it in this way, more people in that postcode with those high weekly income. Well-educated. I think won't be surprised, people with high income, well-educated, like to donate to you in those like postcode area. But one thing that is interesting is, the religion in here is only talking about Catholic. So blanket in here means they are underrepresented. The less likely for a Catholic person, they would like to donate to you. Doesn't mean they don't like to donate, but maybe they have their own channel. So on the other words, the takeaway for you is, we try to find, those are the postcode with high penetration. So we want to find out those another area within New South Wales which have this similar characteristic in terms of postcode level, but low penetration rate for you to target for the other campaigns. Those are the list. Money. Okay, so within a 4-man teams, it's really hard for us to deliver all the ideas that we talk about. We have 2-3 meetings already, we got plenty of ideas, but we only have like less than 24 hours to play around with the real work stuff. So we list some ideas in here that we can go through. Data validation, internal data that can be cleansed in a better way. For example, there are certain amount of records with a postcode without a state. So there are certain % of people that they bounce back, send back to the sender. So is there anything we can do some internal cleansing to reduce the amount of bounce back? Census data. In here, we only have a night to play around with census data. If we have more time or resources to play around with census data, we can give you a more complete picture about household income, the wealth factor, the educational factor, employment factor. And also, we can predict the value of the donor because like the life cycle is really easy to observe from your data already. So we can predict how much likely they will donate to you within a certain time frame. Are they a certain period that you can focus on? People who pass through that period, you can basically try to focus your resource on other like new recruitments. So basically that's it. And thank you.